We're back in the Refinery studio. Dan, Nicolas, good to see you back
Good to
here.
see you
and
too.
It has been a huge pleasure to be with you and a couple of your team members. This is something big that you want to share with people. It's these concepts, these principles have changed the trajectory of your life. They've been instrumental, and they've been something that your understanding of these things has increased over time.
And I'm still discovering even more so. It's still not adding to my life, but it's actually multiplying to my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
So it has massive potential in it to understand these things. And so so I keep referring kind of generally to it, but let's just kind of start here. Lay out this. When you and I first started talking about these concepts, these principles, you expressed them to me in a way about these concentric circles. So can you go back to that and share kind of from the inside out, what are those circles? What are these principles that we're going to be discussing?
Well, sure. I'd like to reciprocate that. Hey, thanks so much for being with us and inviting us here all the way to South Carolina. It's
Absolutely.
a wonderful place. A lot of green from where I'm from, and you all have water.
We have water.
Now we have sand, but you have
and we
water.
have hills. Yeah.
And I've never seen so much green in a long time.
Nice.
I've loved the winding roads that you've taken us down.
Yeah.
It's been spectacular, and the people are very nice, and your wife's a good cook. So
amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Tacos. Yeah,
yes, she put on a good spread out last night.
She did. Yeah,
pork and chicken tacos.
Handmade tortillas. Boy, she went all out. The things I've discovered, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, is, when you find truth and to keep it within yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beneficial to learn those things, but what I've really learned most of all is when you've learned key things and then you're able to share them with other people and just see their lives change too. How rewarding is that? And,
incredibly.
I know that some of the stuff that I've found that have always been there. I mean, it really wasn't hidden from me. It's just I didn't have the ability, and what you and I've talked about before, having awareness, the ability to see. I just didn't have the ability nor the maturity to be able to understand and to see and then to apply these things.
Yeah.
But then once I started evaluating myself and working on these things, my life became successful. And then after the success, I wanted to start giving back.
Right.
And so it kind of turns into significance. How can I significantly help somebody? Because money doesn't fix everything. I mean, it helps,
right.
And money makes things easier, but it's not the end and the beginning of everything.
Yeah.
So what I learned along the way, going back through countless times of failure, where I would start doing something, I would fail, I would learn, I would apply it, then I would gain some ground.
Yes.
Then I'd start testing things and I would fail, I would learn, then I'd continue. But it's been an upward trend. Now there's been a few minor setbacks and some major ones too, but through learning the different seasons, learning how to plan, learning how to get other people's advice and help along the way, and not be afraid to ask, and to really truthfully consider, and need to be careful about who we ask for advice from. But it's just been a nice ebb and flow.
Yeah.
And so if a major storm does come, using some of the things we're going to talk about, I think it'll help prepare all of us for our future, how we can.
Okay. So along that ebb and flow, along that, these are the things that you've seen are pretty constant, right?
And so going back even from childhood, and I was raised in a faith-based, pretty solid Christian home but I learned a lot of what I would like to call just term as values. And I know we hear that quite a lot, people trying to add value to you, and the value of the thing is the cost that it will bring, far as monetarily wise. But looking back, I started looking really what were the things that form my beliefs. And so it really went back to what I was surrounded by and things that were kind of all around me. And I started learning, the value of being honest, the value of having a good work ethic.
Yeah.
The value of completing whatever you start. And of course, there's the value of love and kindness and just expressing those things, and how, as I continue to mature as an adult, as a middle-aged adult, it really went back then seeing how those form my beliefs.
Okay.
On, on life and financially, maritally, relationally.
Okay. So I was asking you about the concentric circles. So the center of is values. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I'm just, for somebody else, they may come up with their own way of doing things,
right?
Or the way how they think. But for me, it's all really just boiled down to the values, the things I value or the things I don't value. There was a time in my life, you and I've shared it a few different times about the part of my life which I'm not proud of, but I'm glad I went through it because I've learned a lot.
Right.
But I really didn't value. I didn't value life. I didn't value the truth. I didn't value people. I didn't value lots of things.
Right.
It was really it was the opposite of good. It was bad values.
Right.
I was looking for all the wrong things in all the wrong places. So and that formed a lot of my beliefs, and as a direct result, actually, then after what I was believing, that I didn't have any value, that I was a heathen, that I was just a bad guy, that I was a thief, and I was a drug addict. That these are the things that we do. We
that was kind of like your self-image at that time, right?
Yeah, that formed my belief, because if you think it, then you think it so much, and you keep telling yourself that over and over and over. Well, then you start to believe that, and then that kind of forms the way how you think, where if you think that that you don't enjoy being around people in life, you became really introverted. You don't want to be around anybody, and then your world shrinks down to the size of you, and you become very selfish. And
right.
Then it's all about you, what you want to do, when you want to do it,
Yeah.
And then, but then with good beliefs and good values, I think that forms your thoughts and what you can do about becoming bigger, better, faster, stronger.
So your values inform, or they kind of lead to your beliefs, and your beliefs lead to the way that you think. Is that what you're saying?
Just through trial and error of evaluation, kind of thinking through this and going back, it always seems to go right back to that. For me, it does.
Right.
And, I am a man of faith, and but it really kind of goes back to the value that God has on his creation. And so I think that's, for me, that's kind of where it goes back to. I just connect the dots better on that. It makes more sense to me to go to that. And through, some people don't understand it, the fact that that's okay. But for me, that's kind of where I go back to, is that God values people. God created people. God values his creation and everything that he said. So, and then there's one part in the book that says that all good things come from God. So,
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how that's kind of formed the way how I believe or not believe.
Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like in values there is my values. In other words, what I think is important, and then my value, how I value myself or other people. Right. And so
those kind of tie in together.
They kind of go together, right? But they're still at the center, right?
Right.
What I value still
it's going to be catalyst.
What I believe,
and then the way how you see yourself is going to be catalyst into your belief system.
Okay, yeah. And so if it goes from value to belief to thinking, what is there another circle outside of thinking? What comes next?
Yeah,
then?
there is, and there's some different mindsets in the way how you think. We're all created a little bit different with some different ways how we think. And depending on what you value, the way you believe, and the way you think, then it goes by the way how you act.
Okay.
And then through your actions, of course, you've got some emotional, what we call EQ, instead of IQ.
Yeah.
We got some emotional stuff that kind of goes on with feelings, and so the way how we kind of think kind of determines what we act. There's a book that I've read before that it says, whatever a man thinks, he becomes that.
Yeah.
So if I think that that I'm a bad guy, I'm going to start thinking about doing bad things. It's just the way how the mind is wired. And I really think that it really goes back to your values. So it kind of just stair steps all the way up and down the whole thing. You really can't skip any steps like on a ladder.
Okay.
There's no point to skipping
steps. So there's a layer in there. There's values, beliefs, thinking. There's a layer of emotions in there. And then you mentioned actions. And so there's kind of emotions lead to actions,
right?
Yeah.
Which brings you to results.
Okay.
You know, and then a lot of the times we do things without thinking because it's become a habit based on what you believe.
Yep.
So then you just simply start acting it out because you've failed to think, or you've become numb due to the habit that's been formed.
Yeah.
So that all kind of ties into the way you think. You develop a habit that your brain goes down just one straight track, and then you become kind of numb to it where it's more of a response.
Yeah.
So as you respond to, you see a car coming, you dodge out of the way. You don't have to think, I need to grab the wheel, I need to dodge.
It's like automatic,
just automatically
right?
do it, right? So I think that, and it's just the way how we've trained our mind to work.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that just becomes responses. And so our responses, are they good or bad? So we've, once you start analyzing that self and you start doing some self-evaluation on yourself, in which a lot of people don't. And that's why they end up being older, and then they get into around the midlife. They have a midlife crisis, literally, because they realize, hey, what I thought was right, it wasn't right. So then they start. But what would it look like if we could start questioning some of our thoughts, even from a young age, even being teenagers and stuff? And I believe that I had pretty good input in that when I was challenged to think. But what I've seen kind of out through our society, a lot of people just don't think. I was reading a statistic, and we probably need to fact check this too. But it was a real high statistic that it was like 80-something% of men just don't think, and that just astounded me. And 85% of men just don't think. Well, what are they doing? Will they get into this habit? I'm going to get up at this time. I'm going to eat. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to eat. I'm going to work, and then I'm going to come home and I'm going to relax a little bit.
Okay.
And then they get stuck into this grind on their thinking because there's no evaluation.
So it's like there's mental activity going on, but it's kind of like unconscious mental activity.
It's unconscious,
right?
and which you and I have talked about that before, the subconscious thinking versus the unconscious thinking. So we get into this mode, but then there'll be a lot of times somewhere around midlife where something will shake us up. We have an emotional thing that happens, or a financial or a relational type, where it'll kind of shake us and wake us up, which will cause us to evaluate that. And we get to looking at it, and we realize, hey, I could have, should have, maybe done something a little bit different. So it goes back to why you did what you did.
Yeah.
And get you to analyze, which, then you have the opportunity to rethink all that and restructure some of your belief system on that.
It sounds like that you are a person who's done a lot of evaluating of how these things work.
I wish I would have done more.
You wish you would have done more. Yeah. Okay, well, so what made you wish you would do? What makes you say that? Like, if you say, "I wish I would have done more," how do you know you wish you would have done more?
Because some of the results I was getting, they just weren't good. I mean, I was trying to take the path of least resistance. I wasn't pushing myself.
Yeah.
I wouldn't plan, and then when I would end up on the island of disaster, I'd say, well, how did I get here? Well, it all went to, how did I get here is because I failed to do some things. What is that? He who fails to plan plans to fail.
Right?
Yeah. So it's kind of just that. So then we end up responding to something that we totally could have avoided, or we totally could have planned for. We could have prepared for something financial disaster, possibly with a little bit of saving or a little bit of investing in some certain areas. But, that really bothered me for a few days, as I kept thinking 80, whatever that figure was, 80% of men just don't think. I think, well, with me being man, I know I don't want to be like that, and I've seen several people in my life that were older than me when I was in my 30s and 40s, seeing a 50, 60-year-old guy and say, I know I don't want to be like that. I don't mind being like this, but I sure the heck don't want to end up like that. And through some of the crowd I was running around, that's kind of what also pushed me, by analyzing that what I didn't want. I learned pretty quick what I didn't want.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay. So, so you went by your results. Like, I got tired of getting this result, so I figured out what was getting me those results. When do you think you first understood? Because it sounds like what you're sharing is a model. It's like a
well, it actually starts at least in my life. It started with discipline as a child, and we had healthy discipline around our house. But getting what I wanted, if I did what I was asked to do, I would. Not that I would have to get rewarded, because I was part of a family. You know, being part of a family, you shouldn't technically get rewarded because you got a place to stay. But if I did what I was asked to do, I'd only get rewarded with some additional being able to go out down the street.
Right.
I'd have a few dollars in my hand or something like that. So, it's basically that, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Sort of a merit-based.
Well, and it is a merit-based, but it all goes back to promises, and so I think once I saw the reward of my labor, and that's from a very young age, that's what kind of instilled a work ethic, discipline in me that I did want to work. I wasn't ever shy about working. Now, I did try to get out of work too, but I even tried it as an adult, and it just wasn't a pleasant experience. I suffered from it.
So, what you're saying there is you understood at some point, when you reflected back, that there was built into you the value of working, of a work ethic, right? There's something in the center of your being that.
There is, and I think it was kind of implemented. I had a good father, and he went to work, and I know that's not happens for everybody, but for me, I had that poured into me.
Yeah.
And I can remember they had paper bags back then. I know we've got plastic, but they used to have these large paper bags, and my mom or dad would tell me, well, hey, before you go down the street or go anywhere, go play basketball, we want you to pull a bag full of weeds, and it's like, oh Lord, we were there in El Paso, Texas. It was hot, stickers everywhere. And so I would pull these weeds, and it would take forever to get a full bag. It'd take like 45 minutes, not that long. But I can remember getting a few and kind of taking shortcuts. Like I'd try to take the weed grass and fluff it up to make it look bigger and lightly drop it in there and stack. And then I'd come up and show my dad, look, I got a full bag of these weeds. And
you didn't throw the cat in the bag and fill it up.
Newspaper and stuff. Yeah. Well, that's a good idea. I remember that. Yeah. But my dad would just come up and push it all down. And go back out there. And I can remember times when they'd say, hey, do this, do that. And they'd come out and they'd find me down the street. Which was, and so there was all this to say that there were perimeters set. Yeah. I could do anything. I wanted to do. I could stay out there all day and pull weeds as long as I was there pulling weeds. It didn't matter. Or I could get it done in 45 minutes to an hour, and then I had the rest of the day to be free. Okay. But I'm a little bit slow on things. But through continued loving discipline and correction and guidance, that's kind of what formed some of my belief system today. Okay. And did I abandon that? Yeah, I abandoned all that, trying to find my own way, which didn't work.
You came back to it.
Always came back to it.
Okay, so you have these concentric circles that is like a model: values, then beliefs, then thoughts, then emotions, then actions, then results. How that idea, like, where did you first discover that? Where did you encounter this idea that this sort of inside out way that things happen? Where did you find that?
I can't go back to a certain point in time where it just kind of like voila appeared. I know back probably about a decade ago, I'd been doing a lot of studying, more journaling, and I don't necessarily say I love to read, but it was okay at that time. I developed a discipline of reading, and I noticed and I'd seen something out there that all leaders are readers, and not that I was striving to be a leader of anything of some sort. But I found a few books that I started reading that kept my attention for more than 10 minutes. And I may read it 10 minutes at a time, but then I started kind of underlining stuff in these books. And then as I know when I was going to church, whoever was speaking, when I heard something good, I would either underline it or I would actually start writing notes. So I developed this habit slowly about taking notes. And even this day, if I'm sitting there talking with somebody, I'll reach across the table, grab a piece of paper, and write something down. And I think was a lot of value for me, and a lot of people kind of miss the value, in my humble opinion, that they just put stuff in their phone.
Yeah.
And I know there is some visual with that, but I'm convinced that there's something that happens when you pick up a pen and you write it down on paper when your hand writing it. And at least for me, it seems to stick better. And then I've got a written copy of it. And what's neat about that is then I can pass that on. And I've thought about, hey, it's easier. And I do it from time to time on my notes on my phone, but it's real hard to pass that on to somebody else, you know? So I've collected all the stuff I've written over the last few decades, and it's in different things I can pass on to my children. But looking back, I think the writing and the thinking that happened in that, and not that it all got clarified at that, but as I started really looking at it, I started really looking at the core of who I am as a man. And I do pray, I am contemplative, I do evaluate, and like in the evenings, if I'm sitting outside or even watching TV, a lot of times I'm not really watching TV. I'm actually thinking about what's transpired, where do I want to go, what do I want to do, and so through that's kind of how the values. And then I started thinking, well, you've got all this goodness, you've got good ethics, what happens then? Well, that kind of forms the way you believe. And, I can remember, I used to think, in my belief, I used to think there was somebody always underneath my bed. So I can even see right now, how I'd look over and we had this little shanty skirt on the bottom that would touch the floor. And I can remember kind of just leaning over the bed, looking at anything. And of course, nobody was ever there. And I don't know why I ever thought that, but I had this built-in fear that there was always somebody underneath the bed, and how that affected my thinking to the point of terror. Yeah. And I was probably to me, I was like 4 years old or something, maybe even five or something. And so these built-in things that happen in our belief system, that I would act it out to come to find it's not true. But then 3 days later, even though it hadn't, I quickly forgot, and I kept going back. So a lot of my thinking and my beliefs and my values, they had to keep going up and down. Yeah. I mean, I just continued until it became kind of concrete.
But you could see today that there was a pattern there somewhere.
Yeah, and then all the beliefs I discovered, like I once believed that if you walked underneath a ladder, some of the old wives' tales that were passed down through generations, like if you walked underneath a ladder, you'd have bad luck. Or, and even to this day, if I see a black cat literally cross my path, I just go ahead and walk on through. It doesn't bother me. But there was a day where I would think, is that true? And then so I'd do it anyway, and nothing would happen. But so I've challenged a lot of my beliefs, which really has me go back to my DNA. And as I've matured at becoming a Christ follower, a man of faith, I've had to go back, and Scripture says to go ahead and try these things that you've learned and see if they're good or not.
Test them out.
Test them.
Yeah.
And so that's what I've done, and I've discovered that testing all the goodness of God, that there is no failure in it.
So it's
Did I answer your question?
Well, yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to understand how you discovered that there was this pattern built in. Like, in other words,
yeah. I think just kind of taking one step after another step. But I don't really remember a day where I go, oh, voila.
Yeah, right.
There was a day I started writing it out, but it had already been set way back here, and it's not like I had this big divine revelation. Now there was a day that I was sitting down, I wrote values. I mean, nobody showed it to me. I believe that it was inspired through my own discovery.
So you started kind of doodling at some point. There was a day you were sitting down, and then what? So tell that. What happened from there? So what were you doodling? You were
well. I was actually in preparation. I was actually getting ready to speak, and so I'd been working for about a week or so, and it just kind of, I've never seen nothing like what I've done, and it just kind of started at the core of everything. Who are you? What are you made of? Right. Whether if you, as just being a man, do you have bad or good? Because it applies even if you have bad things that you've been surrounded, that you haven't been able to let go, how that forms your belief. So some of the bad values that many of us hold on to, it forms what we believe, and then the way how we think and the way that we act out. But then I already knew that what I believed controlled, just from going through being going through school and stuff, just knowing how the mind worked and how the heart worked. There was a part that whatsoever a man believeth in his heart, and he becomes that. You know, what a man thinks in his heart. So that kind of is what led to belief, thinking, and then acting out. So that was a pretty quick jump. That was instantaneous.
So in that time when you were doodling, you were writing those things in these circles. And
yeah, just I don't know why it started off with circles. It did start off with the list. It just started becoming off with the list, and then one day I thought I was looking at something where I think I was looking like at guilt, shame, and I forgot what the other word was. I had like guilt, shame, withdrawal, and I had like a circle with arrows going around that a lot of people live their whole life with guilt and shame, withdrawal, and selfishness. You know,
sort of a vicious cycle.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
So I had this one circle, and then so I was kind of in the circle thought pattern there for a while, and then one day it kind of just, I haven't really thought about that. Well, you ask a good question, you know, attaboy, good job. Good job.
Yeah, fist bump for that.
Yeah. But it did lead to the concentric circles where it expanded out.
Yeah.
And then see the next thing after you get your results would lead to your future.
Okay.
So whatever you and I are working on right now, it will lead to your future. I mean, everything you've done over the last week, over the last decade, over the last 2-3 decades has led you right here to right now. With your best efforts has led you here right now here with me. And just like me with you, and I'm thankful to be here. But what we're doing today will lead to where we are next year.
So the actions that we're taking today get us results, and those results, like over time, lead us to a particular future.
And you can't change that. I mean, you plant a seed in the ground, what happens on a majority of the seeds?
Yeah, it's going to do what it's going to do. Right?
Now, does the ground care if you plant a weed or you plant corn?
Right.
Oh, no, it's going to do what it does. So whether if we bring bad values, bad belief system, bad thoughts, bad actions, then it's going to happen. Yeah. But if we bring good, same thing. It's called, you know, you're gonna end up getting what you've planted.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's called reaping and sowing as well. And so with that, as we continue to work out our future every day, you know, and you know what you and I are doing right now will show up in our life somewhere.
Right.
It will show up in our life. And I can't think of any instance where I've done something that never showed back up.
Okay.
So then that is what I kind of call eternity. I believe kind of even what we're doing right now, even with the other people that are listening to this, we're eternally going to be living somewhere forever.
That, you know, what that reminds me of one of my favorite scenes in Gladiator. You remember that scene where they're getting ready to go into battle, and he's looking around at the troops, and he's like, "What we do in life echoes for eternity."
And then he goes out and slays all the Danes. I think.
So so you found there's some truth to that. What we do in life echoes for eternity.
And you know, I've kind of mixed in with you and I both have the ability to make people's day better or make people's day worse. Then how they act out, respond, think, receive, how they run that through their values that they have, that they hold up, that are significant in their life. And with values, you know, you can't buy values. You can't buy love. You can't buy consideration. You can't buy respect. I mean, you can, but it'd be phony, right?
So it's not material. It's more spiritual in essence, right?
It'd be spiritual. It's the important things that you can't buy. I mean, can you buy breath? Well, you know, I can buy an oxygen. Yeah. But can you buy breath? No. So is breath valuable? Is it worth something? Yes, it's both, but it's more valuable and it is worth too. But you can't pay any money to get any more of it, so to speak. Yeah. So those are the things I'm kind of talking about, is the things that hold significant importance in your life that you can't just pull out your checkbook and buy, but they're part of your DNA, which is a catalyst to where you end up eternally. I believe every decision that I make has eternal significance somewhere down the road of either good or bad. Okay.
So was there, and I know that I asked you this a little bit. We had a previous conversation with your guys and with John and Derek, and I kind of asked you about this, but have you gone, did you at any point go through some kind of exercise to understand your values more? Have you done anything like that?
What do you mean?
Well, like to get clear, sort of a values clarity exercise. Have you ever done anything like that?
Well, as I've looked at, I think it's good to know oneself.
Mm-hmm.
I have looked at my strengths
Right.
and where those all come from.
Okay.
And then I've looked within myself, realized where goodness comes from. I believe all good things come from God. So if there's any good in me, it's all come from God.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that's good, it is a gift of God. It's nothing that I've earned,
Right.
so to speak.
Yeah.
I have to believe that he's given them to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes my responsibility, of course, with his help and with his lovingly caring, guiding me through, for me to work on those things. I believe that, where I am today, and I may be someplace a little further down the road, I'd hope, here in a year or so. But I believe that, and this is based off the values from what I've seen that have been tested, I believe that nothing is mine.
Mm.
I'd be, well, Dan, you've worked hard, you've done this, you've done that, you have a truck, that's yours. Yeah, I get the earthly
Right.
way on how we see things. Hey, I've worked for it, it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
But when I realize that all good things that come from him, then they're his anyway. And so I have a responsibility, and they're kind of like loaned to me.
Yeah.
But I have a responsibility to work for things. But then more so, I have a responsibility just to be a steward over him, over them.
Okay. So let me ask you this: that these things aren't yours. Is I'm going to ask you a true or false statement.
Okay.
You are currently living at the time in your life when you have more things than you have ever had before.
Yes. True.
And yet in that state, you're not holding the value or the belief that those things actually belong to you, but they are yours to use the word steward, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're yours to take care of and yours to, but ultimately,
and to enjoy.
You see a source of those things that is outside of you.
Yes, I'm not the source.
You're not the source of those things.
Where does my strength come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can be arrogant to say it's mine. I exercise.
Right.
It's all mine. Right. But I think that's just too small.
So how is that benefiting your life? Like, if you could say, comparative to any other time in my life, I have more things and I have more opportunities, money, whatever, but it's not really mine. How is that benefiting your life? Like, what do you think is the difference that's making for you day in and day out?
Well, I mean, the thing is, when what I've noticed in my life is that when I start calling my stuff mine and I start claiming it, that's about all I get out of it. It's just mine.
Sort of ends there.
It's just to me it just comes across as real shallow and real hollow. It's like a finite deal. But so I started asking myself, what can I do with what I have out of gratitude? What can I do with these things, God? You've blessed me more than what I could ever repay you.
Yeah.
So you've created a stream of things that I can be part of. How dare I not share them with other people? So I've started trying to share, and I'm not the best at it. I'm still learning, but I've realized more so that when you have things, if you can learn to start sharing them with other people, it's kind of like a tree and fruit. You plant an orange tree, what do you expect to happen? I mean, you expect the seed to reproduce, and as the orange tree grows, a tree is going to grow how tall? Well, as far as it can. And the tree will produce fruit, and the fruit is not for the tree, it's for other people. And then it's actually just to reproduce.
Yeah.
I mean, an orange is to reproduce. Yes, the benefit is eating it, but the goal of the tree is to continue growing and reproducing. I mean, I heard a quote there, they used apples, but how many trees, or you can count the seeds in an orange or apple, but you can't count the forest or the trees that are in that one, in a seed.
In one seed, because it's perpetual.
Right. So the things that I have materially that I've worked very hard for, I've had to apply disciplines through pain and suffering, and I've gained strength from that, but I've been able to I've learned to make wiser decisions with a lot less regret. I used to make awful decisions, had a lot of regrets, but I've learned that, I'm one decision away from a better life.
Okay.
So today, if I make a better decision, I get a better life. Then so I got all these better things around. Then what am I going to do? Am I just going to become a hoarder? Because I'm going to die sometime. What am I going to do? Give them to my children? Or are we going to try to enjoy the things that we have around us now to try to help people get their life better?
So you think that this perspective that you're holding of this isn't mine, it sounds like you experience that you enjoy the things that you have more.
And I'm still learning. I'm not there by no means. I mean,
and it sounds like, and you're experiencing that by not sort of holding on to them as their mine. It helps you to make better decisions.
Well, it's true. Once I come to the understanding that my children aren't mine, my truck's not mine, my wife's not mine, and I can stand on a hill and wave a flag saying everything's mine, but it's empty.
Yeah.
I mean, you climb to the top of the mountain to wave a flag, then what?
Right.
It's like trying to climb the ladder of success.
Yeah.
There's nothing up there. If you've got to crawl over people's back, stab them in the back, knock them off the ladder of success, when you get to the top, you're going to be very, very lonely, and there's nothing up there anyway. There may be a stack of money up there, but what are you going to do with it if you haven't learned the disciplines of love, joy, peace, patience, working well with others, sharing, caring? If you haven't learned those, I mean, who are you going to share it with?
Right.
Miserable life. I think we've got enough miserable things around us without having without me being a miserable person too.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. And so do you think that let me ask, I think if someone was listening to this, they could understand that what I hear in your talk, I hear a lot of that you've experienced sort of this side of things and that side of things. And there's a better way, right?
Oh yeah.
I've tried a way, and then there's another way.
Oh,
and
the bad way is awful.
Right.
It ends up in darkness, man. I mean, you end up going toward darkness and death and emptiness. I mean, lost is lost.
So if you think about someone who is interested in something being better, something being improved in their life, kind of going uphill with their lives, what you're suggesting is you've seen. When you were working out this idea of these concentric circles, you sort of saw that as, wow, this stuff works, right? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seems like there was a discovery like, wow, I there's a word that when I think about what it would have been like for you to go through that process, there's a word that I think, did you figure out that these things make life a little more predictable?
Yeah. Well, after you've kind of tried it, I'm kind of a skeptical person anyway.
Yeah,
I'm more of a person that I'm not going to believe what you say. I'm going to believe what you do.
Right.
Because doing means everything.
Okay. Do you think it's predictable for me to go, if I don't like what's happening in my life, I could go back and look at the actions that I've taken. And I could go, well, whatever's going on, I did something that contributed to this. Then if I said, okay, so what? Well, what got me my actions? Well, it was how I felt about things, right? I was sort of moved along by the way I felt about things. So what? I felt something. What does that matter? What led to the way I felt things? Well, it was the way I was thinking about stuff. That's kind of going back in, and then what led to the way I thought? Well, it was the way I was believing about things. What was contributing to the way I believed things? Well, it was what I really felt was valuable. Like, does that feel predictable? Like you could sit down with the person and they could sort of start evaluating things, and they could see that there was a process.
Yeah, but so then number one. And I'm not going to use the word most, but there's quite a few people that won't even come to that level of awareness or vision that they need to fix anything, that they're just satisfied with where their life is. Or they become accustomed to it in acceptance that, hey, I can't get any better.
Right.
I can't. So that kind of goes back the way of their worth. You know, they look at the worth like, I can't do that. I'll never be like that. I'll never do that. So, so do you see how that goes straight back? Like, just fast step to value.
I get that. So that means even if I don't get it, it's still there. Like it's there. It's waiting for me to be discovered kind of thing.
Right, right. But most people aren't willing to do the work, number one. But I think it takes an actual person. They have to have a wake-up call. And if they're listening to that, their spirit man or that small voice within them, or if they start looking for light and they start crying out to get out of this way of mentality, I think it's kind of like that old saying, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Master appears,
and it's 100% true. When you start asking, seeking, and knocking, great things start happening. But most people, they just become complacent in their life. They're satisfied right where they are. They hope to aspire to be more. But hope is good. But with no action, it's not a strategy just to sit around and I call it smoking hopium.
Oh yeah. There's probably a brand out there named that.
I'm sure it'd be a good one, huh? Maybe we can market that. But I think that if people, one of the easiest things to do, I think, and when I find myself going down the rabbit hole of what I call kind of negative stinking thinking, I go back to, what are some things that I can be grateful for?
So that's definitely woven in.
And I really don't know where it really came from, but as I look at my life, good or bad, I'm a product of where I am today. But if I can go back and start listing out a few things that I'm thankful for. Matter of fact, I started this back several months ago. I just started listing out a few things that I could be thankful for. And I started off with like 10, and then it went to 20. Like I got up to about 50, and I had my wife on there, my parents, and I only started listing them out one thing, that I couldn't repeat it.
Right.
So now I'm getting somewhere close to 1,000. And one of the weirdest things I wrote down is I was here in South America here a couple of weeks ago. I was sitting in the airport, and I was just thinking, and I pulled out my journal just to start just writing. I just pull it out. I try to write just about every day.
Okay.
And I don't have a premeditative plan on writing. I just start writing. And some days it's just writing thoughts. Sometimes it's thankfulness. Sometimes it's an idea. Sometimes it's a conversation just to keep the memory there. Well, I wrote down in my gratitude part, shoelaces. Can you imagine our world without shoelaces? And we go, well, that's really nothing, but you try getting over 500 things and you'll be writing stuff down. But, even this morning, I wrote down things. I was sitting there thinking. And so, all I'm trying to say, and I'll be real brief, is that you've got to start doing something different if you want a different result.
Okay. So is it safe for me to say that this exercise that you're doing with gratitude is you doing something different in the way that you think?
Yes.
So you're using
also
gratitude
reforming my thinking.
Yeah.
So now, actually looking back over the last several months, I actually wake up not so much in a grumpy mood. And when I do,
that's affecting your emotions.
Yeah.
Right.
Shoot, dude, when I leave that book out, that journal book, just on the counter, all I got to do is look at it.
Yeah.
And it just instantly. I've also done some other things to help reform my attitude, because I believe a lot of it goes back to our attitude on how we perceive ourselves, perceive others, which goes back to our values. I could take you right now into our bathroom. Cheryl, my wife, has her side of the bathroom where she has some stuff wrote on her mirror.
Okay.
And I've got stuff wrote on my mirror. And Cheryl used to get so mad at me because I'd get her lipstick. She finally went.
You weren't using
she finally went by. She finally went and bought me some some wax colored pencils. That actually write on the mirror.
They're used for the storefronts.
Yeah. So she got tired of me burning up her lipstick.
Well,
and stuff.
I could.
But one of the things I've got on the top is, what would a wise man do today? So when I'm sitting there brushing my teeth and subliminally, I already know it's there.
Yeah.
Subliminally, I know it's there. And I'm even having this conversation. My mind went right there, and I can see my mirror right now.
Yeah.
Or when I'm in the bathroom drying off or getting dressed, I may read that. Well, it brings me instant focus, like, what would a wise man do today? Yeah. So a wise guy would take care of this, make a list or whatever that may be. I've also got some other things. What's one good decision that I could make today?
Okay.
Better decisions lead to actually, I've got better decisions lead to less regrets. Well, that makes
There
me,
you go.
what is one good solid decision today?
Mm-hmm.
What is one small little decision I can make that could have a big impact in eternity? Because everything is going toward eternal decision making.
Right.
And eternity can be changed for the better or for the worse, for the implementation of a good idea, good decision, or the lack thereof.
Right. Yeah.
There's other things I have
So
too.
so those thoughts that you're putting in your mind, putting them up on the mirror and other places, are influencing the way that you think, and that's changes how you feel about.
Yeah, I've even got another
one.
one that I'm even seeing. I feel like sharing. I've got other ones that may share another time.
Okay.
But I've got ask, seek, and knock.
Okay.
So when I ask, it brings clarity. It really focuses, and one of the defining characteristics is, what is it that I really want? Do I really want this result? Do I really want this in my life? Do I really want this in my future?
Right.
So when I keep asking for a decision or a process to be implemented in my life, or I'm always thinking, what is it that I really want? And, of course, I'm 60 now. I'm starting to look toward my latter years. What is it that I really want? And one of my friends, Paul Martinelli, we went through classes like a 10-week hour class. And that was one of the things. We'll really write out what is that you want. And so as that class went on, I discovered, what I first wrote down isn't really what I wanted. If I would have wrote like I'd like to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's pretty broad.
Yeah, right.
But it really got down to really specific.
Very
so
much.
I was really working on myself, and I really truly believe that as you continue to grow and mature, that you'll start asking the better questions.
Okay.
And it does take a little bit of time, because you're gonna grow, you're gonna implement, you may fail, you'll learn and grow some more, then you'll improve, then you'll continue on. But so when you ask the question, the answer will come.
Yeah.
And when you have the answer, that answer only belongs to you, because you've done the work to get the answer. It's kind of in life like, you can be a resource and you can start doing an information dump over all the people. I mean, you can walk through Walmart and tell them all this information, all the people in Walmart. But until really somebody comes up and really asks you a question, they aren't really going to receive it.
Okay.
Right. So you can go out and give all this information, all this knowledge, all this wisdom that but until the person really wants to receive it, he has to come up and say, hey, Rick, what do you think? Or can you give me some advice? Because then they're asking the question. That means they really want to know. So you got ask, then you got seek. Are you willing to do the things that you haven't done before? Are you willing to do the things that your peer group has done to get there? Are you just hoping that you can become them, but you aren't willing to do the work that they've done? So when you start seeking, you start looking. That means you start reading. You start doing things that people want to do. I know in the Christian circle, people are always talking about people in the Bible. Oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. I wish I could be like Moses. And can you imagine Noah? Well, they're never going to be like those people until they start doing the things that those men did.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people will like to speak it into existence, so they say, but they haven't done the disciplines that those men did.
Manifesting takes a lot of hard work, doesn't it?
Well, and a lot of imagination.
Right. Well, it's like someone would say, well, I want what you have, and you could ask them back, will you do what I've done?
And most of them say no, and then you give them something to do. Then they'll be back a couple of weeks later wanting what you want. And you go, well, did you do what I asked you to do? And they go, no. And then, well, can I go? No, you need to go back and do what I asked you to do. And most of them get frustrated and they leave. And that's why they're stuck in this rut of guilt, shame, me not getting what I want, so I'm going to have a bad attitude. And it just turns in. I mean, people live not just a year there, but they'll live 30, 40 years there and be a miserable person. So we have asking questions that will be answered, and when they're getting yours, then you have seek, doing things, looking for answers, and that way when you do find it, you'll see it. Then you have knock.
Yeah.
And I used to think about knocking. Well, what do I keep knocking on? You knock on everything to see if a door's open. I mean, if you were desperate to get inside, to figure something out, you'd be knocking on everything.
Something
to
you've
find
never
a way.
done. You're going to do something you haven't done
if you're in
before.
this dark world,
and
you knew that salvation was outside of this dark box, would you not be knocking all over the place if you couldn't see? Would you not be earnestly be trying to seek to get out of the darkness?
Yeah.
Most people would if they knew that light was out there.
Okay.
So ask, seek, and knock, and then when the door does open, the door only opens for you because you've done the work and the knocking to get through it. Yeah, and then you've earned it. So ask, seek, and knock. So I've got that on my mirror.
Okay, good. Yeah, and that's a whole lesson in and of itself right there. That was very good. Thank you for sharing that. Now, let me ask you this. I want to kind of land the plane of this particular conversation here, because what we want to do, what I think this is an opportunity for people who would be listening to this, is to get a little bit of insight into this sort of model and knowing certainly more about you. So what do you want to do with this now? This model and this learning, you said the word significance. So what are you doing? What are you doing now to press into significance in terms of how do you intend to bring this to other people and make an impact on other people with this?
That's a good question. I've got it written down in my own heart and my head.
Right.
I've started sharing it,
and we're working on that process as well, right?
Yeah. So right now, I feel like I need to get it out in plain sight so I can take a look at it. Yeah. And I'm going to continue sharing it, but I want to leave something in people's hand. I've got some people that I'm surrounded with that I like to leave them something. I want something for somebody. Yeah. And so something I can leave a lasting legacy with, so I can give them something. Right. We've talked about some of the training I've done in the past with reciprocity. You kind of lead with giving, with being kind, with graciousness, and by giving. So I'd like to be able to give some things that, that may help somebody get a little further down the road. I have people all the time kind of say, well, how do you do what you do? And I want to be where you want to be. And so I want to be able to leave something with them.
So you want to train people in this? Give them some training in it?
Yeah. I mean, making money is relatively pretty easy if you've acquired the morals and the ethical positions in order to do it. Yeah. And then how you can sustain it and how can you keep it and how can you invest it and use it for others. That's where the training comes in.
Yeah. Okay.
So I just want to be able to be a distribution center for the the people that I'm surrounded with,
and helping people understand this, at least in part. And there is other things, but helping people understand and apply this in their lives.
Yeah, and so I believe that I'm more and even on what they call the DISC test, which is kind of a personality test that we can talk about that later. But you have 4 different distinctive personalities, and I'm in one of them, and I'm known as kind of a builder and a creator. And so if I can help build something in your life that you can take over, I can share a few tools with you, and you go out and go build and create.
And you do it.
Then if I can empower somebody else and encourage them to go out and go build and create a life worth living for them, that they can be impactful in other people's lives, to have eternal meaning and to have a great future, which will come back to great actions, which will come back to healthy thinking and believing and good values, I think our world will be a better place.
Okay, so who do you think would be some people that, we're working on some ways for people to interact and people to be involved and to impact people, and I would say, I mean, I don't want to just use a buzzword, but I think what we're working on is it has tremendous potential to be transformative for people's lives and in their personal life, in their business life. Who do you think are the people that should be getting close? Who should be paying attention to what we're doing? Who should be?
Yeah, I love young adults that want all these aspirations, that want to just step out of the status quo, that may not have had enough focus or enough wherewithal or enough financial capability to go to college and go learn a few skills, but that still know that they have an inner being to be more than where they are right now, and that they're willing to work on themselves. I love being around, I guess, younger entrepreneurs or helping them get down the road. I also have a heart for people that have had an awful lifestyle. I'm very comfortable with that because, as you well know from our past conversations, I came out of a awful lifestyle back when I was 28 from drug addiction and having hepatitis C and just being around things I really don't want to glorify at all. But I realized that I was living in a life of lack, and now that I can live in a life of abundance, I'd like to share those things with people that have been hurting. I really enjoy being around people that are kind of feeling unloved, unwanted, unneeded, unappreciated.
Right.
I love being around that group, and a lot of people have been incarcerated.
Okay.
And so I think just looking in kind of in that vein right there in that area in our country, we have. I was looking the other day. We have over 200 penitentiaries just here in the United States between federal and state.
Okay.
I forgot the figure of. I think it was close to 2.3 million.
Okay.
People in prison, or right, maybe it was 1.8. Incarcerated. Well, then recidivism from the stats that I was seeing is that when a guy gets out of prison on parole, he stands a 44% chance on going back to the penitentiary within a year.
Right.
And a lot of that is because things haven't changed to where he goes back home.
Okay.
And a lot of the mindset, he hasn't changed, so thus he falls back in. And even if he has some good skill set, he gets pulled back in to the lifestyle. And then if a guy's been out of the penitentiary or a lady's been out of the penitentiary, they stand at an 8-year period, they stand an 88%.
So the number
within an
goes
8-year
up.
period.
Wow.
Yeah. Over an 8-year period, they stand an 88%. And I really goes back to, even in school, they don't really teach us values. Now they tell you how to sit and how to act, but there's no reasoning of why you do.
But not in the way you and I are talking about.
Right. So I think that as far as in the correctional facilities, if we can bring in some light for them to be able to start analyzing their lives, even if there's only one person.
Right.
I was reading a story there this morning that a lady went out every day for a walk on the beach. Well, she'd go out on a 1-mile hike, and she'd always bring back a piece of trash.
Right.
And her friends would look at her like, well, why are you bringing up trash? I mean, there's all kinds of trash out there.
Right.
But could you imagine our world if everybody went for a walk on the beach or in a forest or down their street and picked up a piece of trash?
Right.
Would that not be effective? So when we do ministry, a lot of my friends do ministry, some of them street ministry, some of them in church ministry, some in school ministry, some just in missional minded all over the world. And then I've got friends that do more of for the incarcerated and for those that are in need. Can you imagine our world if we would all just be able to affect even one person? Doesn't that have eternal significance?
So what you're saying is what we're developing and and that kind of stemmed out of this time of looking at, wow, there's like a concentric circles here. There's a method here. What we're developing to help people understand this and apply it could be applied for people in business, people especially on an entrepreneurial pathway in a business, and it could be useful for people that have their lives not in the place that they would want them to be, but in a place probably where no one would want their life to be able to make some changes and take their life on a different pathway, right?
Right. And, I think, and I just want to clarify, I think this works. I know that I've come from an area of my life where I was raised with Christian parents in a Christian home. Then I kind of went to the South, so to speak, until I was 28. But I think this works for anybody, anywhere, doing anything.
Yeah. Regardless of their background, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because regardless, we all acknowledge bad and good.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we all understand bad inside of somebody, good inside somebody. It's kind of like that one thing where we've heard about the good dog or the two dogs. The one that's going to get stronger is the one you feed the most.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we have that warring on within us.
Yeah,
and so we have two different distinct.
We certainly get if we may not use the words results, right? But if we understand that word, we certainly know, well, I like the results I'm getting, or I don't like the results I'm getting, right? We'd probably express that in different ways, but ultimately we get that no matter what our background is.
I think it'd be reasonable, even the way how, I'll just use you, even the way how you think.
Can
Can you think of a time where you weren't in a good place of your thinking?
Oh yeah, you mean before 10 o'clock this morning, or
Yeah, being in a room with some guys. Yeah,
before the coffee. Yeah. No,
so I mean, if you go back even further, when you may have been in a little bit of a dark time,
Sure.
or you were in a challenged time of your life,
Yeah.
or you were being stretched to think.
Yeah.
Was there any dark moments in that? And then what
yeah.
was being produced out of that? Was anything really majorly productive
Yeah.
being produced out of that?
Yeah.
But think of some joyous times in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Is there not good things coming out of that? So regardless if you're a person of faith or not, that's really not the point here.
Yeah.
I mean, the sun rises up, the sun goes down, the tide comes in, the tide goes out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, drop an apple, it's going to fall on the ground. So
Yeah.
there is some
common
laws.
demand.
Yeah,
Thing,
I mean,
right?
there are
right.
laws that happen. I mean, whatever you plant, it will grow. It doesn't matter if it's a weed. It doesn't matter if it's a sticker. It doesn't matter if it's a tree. It doesn't matter if it's wheat.
Yeah.
So
So
whatever you're
this
planting,
is kind of this is so it sounds like what you're suggesting is this is pretty universal in nature. What we're talking about here,
regardless of person or culture or anything.
But certainly people that are ready for better results in their lives should be paying attention to this
if they're ready for it.
If they're ready, and key word there, right?
But we go back to most people lack thinking.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for taking the time to discuss this with me and at least give people some initial insight into what's kind of behind the scenes here, because this is really a behind the scenes conversation where we're not here to say here is this whole thing. We're saying here is this thought that definitely has been tested in your life and in other people's lives, and as we discuss it, we're doing a lot of leaning in and nodding our heads, and definitely with excitement. Even with all that we've discussed here, it is really the tip of the iceberg of what we're really talking about, right? True. We've had some much deeper and much more specific conversations. We're speaking a little more generally here, but I think we could confidently say people should be leaning in and paying attention to this, right?
Well, if it's helpful for them.
Yeah.
If it's not helpful, it's okay. You've got a full day.
Right.
And Lord willing, we'll be here.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So,
nice.
we're here to help. And if we can, reach out. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Appreciate your spirit, and absolutely been a pleasure.
Appreciate yours.
Yeah. All right.
I like some more tacos.
You bet.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure there's leftovers. All right. Good to see you.